Hey, good afternoon, everyone. I am Emily Rocha, part of the marketing team at Xyte, and we are so happy to have you joining us today. So, welcome to our webinar. Before we dive in, I would like to make a few housekeeping notes. Firstly, this webinar is being recorded and a replay will be available for all registrants. If you have any questions during the presentation, please feel free to type them into the comments below, and we will aim to answer as many of these questions as possible at the end of the presentation. Today, we are here to discuss how manufacturers can use cloud and proactive support as a competitive advantage. So in the next 30 minutes, we'll share many insights that goes from building your cloud to using it to improve your customer experience. Unfortunately, Omar could not join us today, but we are fortunate to have with us Jody Thomas, Head of Software Strategy at Avocor, and Andrew Gross, Vice President of Sales at Xyte. And without further ado, Andrew, please get us started.
All right, thanks so much, Emily. Appreciate that. And thank you everyone for jumping on here for this quick webinar. Just to kind of set the stage quickly on what the roadmap looks like for the next half hour or so is, ironically enough, this is perfect timing because we just got back from a great trade show called InfoComm down in Orlando. But the focus for today is going to be talking about the cloud and really kind of deciphering what it means for you as a manufacturer, you as a channel partner who engages with manufacturers of equipment, and even you as an IT end user who potentially are leveraging this cloud for your own monitoring and management of equipment. But more specifically for today, and the reason why this conversation is so relevant and hopefully so powerful is that instead of just me getting up here and talking a little bit about the cloud and how it affects AV in general, we have a fantastic guest joining us in Jody, who I'm going to hand the mic to in a little bit. But the reason why Jody is so important in talking about this subject is that you can look at this almost as a case study. Avocor, which Jody will explain exactly who they are in a second if you haven't heard of them before, but Avocor has leveraged the Xyte tools and has announced also at InfoComm just last week the ability to do exactly this, the ability to use cloud for their hardware to offer a proactive support method around their equipment. And now, in my own belief, offering them a competitive advantage. And so Jody is joining us to talk a little bit about the why, the what, the how. I'd love to hear some questions from the audience as well. I'll keep an eye on the chat to see if you guys have any questions for myself at Xyte, which is the platform behind the whole scenes, but also from Jody, who's living this at Avocor today, and through not just the launch, but also through a couple select initial launch customers, and hear some of his feedback. So Jody, actually, before we get into any of the details, maybe it's great to just give a quick introduction about Avocor for any of those on the call who maybe are not familiar exactly with the name or what you guys do.
Sure. Thanks, Andrew. So Avocor is a leading manufacturer of interactive displays that go into meeting spaces for collaboration purposes. Avocor works in conjunction and has very important strategic partnerships with the likes of a lot of the UC platform providers, such as Microsoft and Zoom and Google and so forth. That's what has driven a lot of our success in the market. Avocor is in about 80 countries worldwide, and they do provide best-in-class, not only product, but also support for their product, both to Avocor's customers as well as channel partners.
Awesome. Thank you, Jody. So big displays, collaboration kind of focus, global company. I think a lot of the people on this webinar can probably relate to something in that realm of making hardware, using hardware, or buying and reselling that hardware. And we're going to talk a little bit about how you guys in that realm, there's a lot of competition in that space, and how you kind of differentiated yourselves. Before we do, a quick introduction also of really who we are from the Xyte standpoint and why we have this Avocor Xyte conversation today. Xyte is the cloud-based platform that Avocor has used to build out this competitive advantage from a proactive support and monitoring standpoint. But from a high level, the way that Xyte has positioned our specific software set of tools is that we work directly with manufacturers like Avocor to provide, one or all of these three very key aspects that are affecting the modern market. One, a very quick and easy path to the cloud. So setting up your devices, your equipment to communicate and collaborate on a central interface. Two, the ability for, once those devices are communicating, for you to be able to provide enhanced support, proactive support from the manufacturer, but of course also down to your channel partners and to your end customers. And three, a very quick and easy path to as a service. Now, we won't have a lot of time today to talk about as a service, but of course, the three of those things and so much more is really a great definition of the current kind of subscription economy and entering into this AV or displays or digital signage or collaboration as a service style market. And what the Xyte platform has done, and what can do with other manufacturers or does do today with Avocor, is very quickly and easily enable those three things for an OEM to go to market with a new solution. And the solution that we're going to be talking about today, so people can start kind of connecting those dots of, well, what does that really mean for me, is this platform that Avocor has created and built on the Xyte CDP, the connected device platform, which is Avocor Fuse. So Jody, you recently released Avocor Fuse. I walked through your booth. The booth was packed at InfoComm 23. I loved it. I got a demo actually of Fuse just to kind of test your sales engineer. He did a great job. Great job there. But can you explain a little bit about what Fuse is for those that maybe didn't have a chance to go to InfoComm and see a demo live in your booth?
Sure. So Fuse is Avocor's solution that is built on top of Xyte, but it's our specific implementation that allows for native support for Avocor's displays to be connected to the Xyte platform and to be claimed by Avocor's customers. And so the way that Avocor is taking Fuse to market is that Avocor's customers who purchase Avocor displays from Avocor's channel partners can create their own account for free and then simply go in and claim their devices and then provide a cloud-based architecture for them to go in and manage those devices from wherever they might sit for as many IT managers within Avocor's customers as they need to enable to access those devices. And there are several key aspects of why Avocor did this that I'll get into here. But we spent a lot of time gathering market feedback around what IT managers who are deploying Avocor displays really needed to be able to accomplish. And we spent a lot of time really understanding the market, understanding what the need was, and made some very strategic decisions, both what I would characterize as near term for addressing the needs of IT managers, as well as long-term strategic objectives for Avocor. And so a lot of the feedback that we got from IT managers that are deploying Avocor displays is that they needed to be able to they needed to be able to accomplish sort of 5 key things. Number one was to be able to configure their displays. Avocor already has the best in breed user interface called UIQ that it natively sits on the display. And so it was very easy for an integrator, one of Avocor's partners, to go in, install the display, then go into UIQ, configure the display directly from the display itself. However, when you're deploying hundreds or thousands of displays, that gets to be pretty cumbersome of having to go from room to room to basically repeat the same setup over and over again. Those IT managers really came back to us and said, hey, we need to be able to have a simpler way to do this from one central location. Most of the displays are being used in similar fashions or in a set of use cases that we can centrally deploy this. And once they're installed, we just want them to connect to the network, and then we go through and configure them. So that was sort of the first key element of what we wanted to be able to provide to IT managers. The second is, once they were installed, what are you going to do with it? How are you going to manage that device in terms of firmware updates? Make sure that it's behaving properly in the room, that it's turning on and off when it's supposed to, and so forth. The third aspect was really around how do IT managers support both the device, the room, and then their customers internally who were using those rooms. and to provide a seamless way of accomplishing that. The fourth aspect of this was not all IT managers really wanted another pane of glass to have to go look at because they're already using their own management platforms. And so providing the ability to integrate with the tools that they're already using, whether it's email, Slack, support desk solutions, and so forth. And so we needed to be able to provide them the ability to integrate with the existing tools that they already have in place. And then the last element of this was to provide some analytics around how are Avocor displays being used in room, and really be able to run some analytics around that to understand uptime, deployment scenarios for future looking objectives as they look to expand their fleet of devices and meeting spaces.
This is awesome, Jody. This seems like a completely robust system then for a integrator or an end user to really start to get a more holistic view of their estate of devices, right? And a key thing here that I think is so interesting is, you're talking about it from an Avocor standpoint, and it's amazing because displays are such a massive part of the modern room, right? I don't think I've walked into a conference room recently that doesn't have a display of some sort, let alone collaboration, which is also now, of course, bleeding into almost every single room. But what was kind of always missing was this larger view, this more macro view of what was happening with these devices. Because now that they are proliferating into more and more spaces, they're becoming more mission critical. Your system can work great on the table or in the ceiling, but if the display doesn't turn on, I think it doesn't matter how great your mic pickup or your touch panel is. And I've noticed that myself just in living it. So with this kind of huge shift, of course, to displays and collaboration, and now needing this type of all-encompassing cloud-based monitoring and management solution like Fuse for Avocor displays, I'm curious, what was Avocor doing before? What were you doing, and what were your customers kind of doing? But walk us through that, the before life, and now kind of how life has improved so much with Fuse, and honestly, where you see it going to in terms of more improvement.
Sure. Historically, the way that Avocor worked with its integrator partners to deploy displays was that they would simply unbox the display, install it, go through a one-off configuration, and then rinse and repeat, do the same thing over and over again. Traditionally, firmware updates were done via a USB update. So you would have to have a USB stick, walk from one display to the next, plug in the USB stick, run a firmware update. And so we were very careful about the frequency in which we would do firmware releases for that very reason, because it was painful for customers who had 100, 200, even 1,000 displays to do an update. And that had to be carefully coordinated because a lot of times the IT managers who were doing that kind of support were not even on site. They would have to schedule time to go to a specific office to do these kinds of updates. And so historically, that was how Avocor approached deployment of devices. And then from a support standpoint, Avocor would either have a customer who would call in for support if they had a problem, or they would call their integrator, or the integrator would then escalate to Avocor, and it was done by phone calls, emails, and so forth. And just this work effort around the implementation of Fuse in partnership with Xyte really allows us to streamline so much. The ability to do an OTA update is no longer really an issue for Avocor, for Avocor's integrator partners, even for the IT managers. We publish a firmware update for a specific series of displays, and it's available. It shows up in UIQ that's available either for download. If the IT manager wants to push it from Fuse, they're welcome to do that. There with no user intervention in the room needed. And so we sort of went from, I would characterize it sort of dark ages into, really, really sophisticated cloud-based solution that puts the power in the hands of the IT manager at Avocor's customers.
You finally have seen the light, I guess is what we can say. No, it's perfect, Jody. And actually there's a couple questions coming in. I was going to save a bunch for the end, but this one's just pretty relevant So I want to bring it up now. And the question was related to what type of data is actually available to the manufacturer, to the customer, and whatnot. And I think there's actually two answers to this. And I'll take it first quickly from a platform standpoint. But then, of course, I'd love the Avocor specific answer to this as well. But Robert, who asked this question, related to data, as it relates to from a Fuse standpoint built on Xyte, our platform, the Xyte platform that has enabled this type of data collection and data presentation, as well as a bunch of other analytics, is agnostic. It's agnostic to the devices, as long as the device is network connecting and communicating to the Xyte platform. Once the Xyte platform has the data, the telemetry speaking from that specific device, that is when then you as the manufacturer have the ability to do what you please with it. You can showcase it out to your channel partners. You can display it down to your end customers. You can leverage it internally with your engineering team to start making better data-driven decisions about product lifecycle and product management, and of course, product development. So from an Xyte and a platform standpoint, the good news is that any telemetries you send to our platform, you will have the ability to then white label, display, use and leverage down through your channel out to your end customer. But Jody, I think it'd be great to give a more tangible material example of what Avocor is doing with this kind of data.
Sure. So there's a fair amount of data that Avocor has designed for the displays to push, for lack of a better term, into the Fuse cloud. But first and foremost, we are very, very sensitive to data privacy. And so the way that we've approached this is with all of the data that the devices are pushing up to the cloud. Where it stops is with the IT manager for Avocor's customers. It doesn't go beyond that. They choose what they want to share with their integrator, and also it can selectively share information to Avocor for the purposes of support and support only. We can see basic things from an Avocor standpoint, such as how many devices are registered to Fuse, but it's an aggregate number. We can see who the customers are from an Avocor perspective, but that's sort of where it ends. We can see basic information, but unless that customer chooses to escalate a ticket to Avocor for support purposes, we don't see much more than that. We don't see the behavior of the display, the configuration of the display, the telemetry data that's being pushed, and so forth. It's only when they escalate a ticket. And once that ticket's closed, our visibility goes away. And so we really want to put the power in the hands of the IT manager to make decisions around how they can best manage their fleet of devices. And that's where our key decision making was made.
Awesome. Thank you, Jody. We actually have two questions that are kind of related. Since we're talking about Avocor, before we shift to the next subject, I'd love to just say one last little quick question on the Avocor specific item. And it's kind of a combo question. One is, how does somebody claim a Avocor display within the platform? And the second one is just really confirming the type of hardware that is communicable to this type of Fuse platform. Is it the entire line? Is it all different sizes? Where does it come from an Avocor SKU standpoint?
Sure. So I'll answer the last part first. So Avocor has several different series of displays. They have the G series, E series, the L series, and then the W series. And so we made the conscious decision about a year ago in terms of our product roadmap that everything that was developed from about a year ago forward will have Fuse support. So G series, E series, L series, and then even our legacy W55 product all have native Fuse support, which means that it's built into the firmware. As soon as that device is connected to network, which is then connected to internet, it automatically registers itself with Fuse. And then as an IT manager, I can then go in and there's two methods of claiming a device. One is that I can simply get the MAC address and the serial number off the box, key it into my Fuse account, and it gets claimed that way. The second is even easier. We've built in, because it is a display that you're connecting, an Avocor display that you're connecting to Fuse, we have the ability to present a QR code on screen within UIQ. From your mobile device, you can simply scan that QR code, log into your Fuse account as an IT administrator, and it will automatically claim. So it's super simple, but sort of a two-step process. One's taken care of for you as soon as you connect up to the network. It will automatically register, so it's ready to be claimed. And then the second step is one of those two methods, either QR code scanning from the display, or just simply by entering the MAC address and serial number.
Awesome. Thank you, Jody. All right, let's do a quick transition based on time. I just took a quick peek at the clock, and I think these are amazing things that you're talking through, what Avocor and Fuse is now able to do due to this platform from Xyte that's kind of enabled and given you these tools at your fingertips. So let's take a little bit of a deeper dive into that platform specifically, really around the how, right? We've kind of identified the what and the why. You've done an awesome job explaining this Fuse platform, what it does, and why it's so important for you as a manufacturer for data, for your channel partners to do more with your equipment through software, and of course for end users to get a better experience. But at the end of the day, what's kind of enabled you to do all this? I mean, this is a lot of stuff that we've talked about. I mean, just in that last slide, from configuration to claiming, QR codes, support, data aggregation, analytics. I mean, that is a lot to build from a cloud-based platform, especially from a hardware company, right? You guys make best-in-class hardware. So this gets to the main question here, Jody, is this question that a lot of people are struggling with, not just even in this own cloud-based monitoring, management, and proactive support world, but even others, is this build versus buy, or this in-house versus leveraging tools of a platform. It's kind of how I like to better see it. It doesn't roll off the tongue as easily as build versus buy, but I think it'll make clear, because it's not just you're buying something from someone and using it. You truly are receiving a platform, right? That was our goal in our partnership. It is our goal with partnerships with many manufacturers who want to leverage our tools, is get you to market with something quick, easy, and fast. But maybe explain a little bit about your decision of this build versus buy, and what having a platform of tools that's constantly evolving kind of acts as a benefit and then that competitive advantage to you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. So when we started looking at what we wanted to strategically accomplish, and so I've sort of painted the value proposition for an IT manager at an Avocor customer. If we were solely focused on doing some of those things, it would still take us a tremendously long time for us to go off and build it ourselves. I've built cloud platforms before. It is not something that is trivial. There's a lot to take into consideration in terms of security, just the overall platform architecture. Those decisions do not come fast. And the time to build something like this is not something that I had the appetite to put Avocor through, to do it from the ground up. Even if our focus was specifically just to accomplish what I've described specifically for IT managers. Avocor's vision for this is much bigger than that. And it would have been next to impossible for us to go off and do this and have a reasonable ROI that would pencil out on us taking on that burden ourselves without doing it through a partnership. And it just so happened that when we started looking at Xyte, we said, okay, well, for what we wanted to accomplish for IT managers within Avocor's customers, these capabilities check the box. But in the bigger picture of what we wanted to accomplish longer term, it also happened that this vision that I have had for Avocor aligned very nicely with Xyte's vision of being able to deliver more of the as a service type capabilities, which we'll talk a little bit about, but that was sort of where I was wanting to take things and where Avocor needed to take things longer term. And so it just so happened that the visions very nicely aligned above and beyond just the core capabilities that Avocor had sort of the immediate need for.
Yeah, I always kind of relate it whenever I'm speaking to other OEMs or partners in general, is kind of like that CRM and ERP conversation, right? Of you very well could build your own SAP and Salesforce, but let's be honest, that wouldn't have been the best use of your time and resources to do so. And the same is going to be happening very soon. And I think we're just simply on the early stages of this kind of revolution as it relates to a CDP. As IoT is becoming more applicable and not just a fancy acronym, having a connected device platform to do something with that IoT initiative that almost every single company is digitally transforming to is that next frontier. And that's exactly where we see our platform coming into benefit with Avocor. And I think you guys have done an awesome job using those tools, kind of setting that foundation for the future. Speaking of future, let's talk a little bit about this, because this platform, one of the other benefits of it, not just giving you tools to do stuff as it relates to monitoring, management, and support, it also sets you up for that future context of what does Avocor look like in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years, and what is the market demanding of Fuse in the future? We have our take, and maybe I'll comment actually after I'll let you speak first, Jody, but where do you see Fuse going in the future?
So we definitely have a very aggressive roadmap for future-looking capabilities within Fuse. And so first and foremost, everything that we have built today to provide to IT managers to manage their fleet of Avocor displays is free and will be free. So that doesn't change. We do have a roadmap of a lot of as-a-service type capabilities. And I'll start with some of the basics. Another aspect of where we intend to deliver value is through the management of extended warranties, white glove services, and so forth, so that it becomes a mechanism for Avocor's customers to extend their own warranties, where the display knows where it is in its warranty cycle, and then we'll choose to be able to extend it through a self-serve type model, or to simply order that extended warranty from their integrator partner. Same with white glove services. So in the event that you need to have a display moved, for instance, from one space to the other, that you would be able to request and deliver those types of services directly from Fuse, and then transact those services within the Fuse platform. The other is digital activations, being able to use Fuse to deploy applications natively and embedded to an Avocor display. So extend the life of your device by adding new capabilities to it over time. And then Fuse serves as a deployment mechanism for that. And in the event that those are subscription-based, then you would simply transact the digital subscription from within Fuse. And then the last piece that's also really key to our roadmap is that we also believe that there is a important aspect of our business today of what I would characterize as a solution as a service, which is a combination of device and software on a subscription basis. And through the work that we've done with Xyte, we know that that is very real and very possible within the Xyte platform when we choose to go off and do that, to be able to deliver a solution as a service on a subscription basis that allows for a Avocor customer to purchase those solutions on subscription for their integrator partner to go off and deploy them, and for Avocor to be able to support them from a management standpoint on that subscription. So that's sort of what our future roadmap for Fuse really looks like.
That's awesome. I'm excited to see Fuse leveraging all of those different tools. Kind of just going even back to this, to that last slide that we were talking about in the platform, is you have these different applications. It's not a all or nothing approach with a platform partnership like we have. You can build that foundation, you can start adding applications on top of it, not just as Avocor is ready, but maybe even as your customers are ready. And I think you brought up a great point around this as a service. And one of the notes we have on here in the bottom right, this recurring revenue stream aspect. From my own experience, being in this industry more than a decade and working with you, Jody, for many, many years, but of course focused on this partnership, is the as a service conversation can be defined in so many different ways. And unfortunately, in my view, a lot of manufacturers and channel partners and customers today view it as just a financial exercise. When in reality, and as a service, it's in the name, right? It's about delivering an enhanced service, or I call outcome, right? It's turning your hardware as a medium to deliver better software, better services, and better outcomes. I mean, that's the true definition of an as-a-service platform. Now, where an Xyte CDP, this connected device platform, comes into play very keenly, and how Avocor plans to use this, as I'm hearing from you, Jody, is that since it isn't just a financial exercise to get into this as-a-service economy, what the platform allows you to do is to pair product data monitoring and management and enhanced support with the financial exercise. Because the first two are the outcome, and the third one is really the delivery mechanism of such an outcome. Is that kind of right?
Yes, absolutely.
Amazing.
Yeah. So we. Sorry, go ahead, Andrew.
The only thing I wanted to comment on that was simply about how like the platform is enabling for you to do so, but it sounded like you were going after that anyway.
Yes. Yeah. So we've taken very much of a foundational approach. Deliver what IT managers have told us they need now, and then continue to build on that for the things that we see are important for IT managers, for integration with our integrator partners, and then also the solving challenges that Avocor has, to be honest with you, to streamline the way that we support our customers. Just the ability to open up a ticket without having to go back and forth on email really simplifies this greatly from an Avocor standpoint as well.
That's great. Well, Jody, thank you so much. Let's actually jump right into it since we're at the half hour. We are having a ton of questions come in for really actually the both of us. So let me take a quick look. First one that has come through here is it's more of a tactical approach. We talked a lot about the how from a high level as it relates to a platform being able for you to white label this and connect your product data. Maybe get not too detailed, but just a little bit more granular on like, well, how do these products actually talk to this platform?
Sure. So what we've done is Avocor's engineering team has taken Xyte's API, which is a published API that they provide to their OEM partners. And we've simply built support into Avocor's display firmware that tells the device where to go to register with the Xyte platform, register a device with the Xyte platform, manage the claiming process, manage the configuration data, the telemetry data, how frequently that telemetry data is being sent, and so forth. What happens when a device is powered off? Does it immediately report that information in, and so forth? So a lot of that decision-making was decision-making that Avocor's engineering team took onto itself. We've also extended that into the ability to manage configuration data, for instance, in both places. So you can manage it in Views. You can also manage it in UIQ. And we've resolved a lot of those issues of, as an IT manager, I might have somebody there in the room who's directly working with the display, makes a change, and then I immediately see that information in Views. If I then turn around and make a change in Views, that person who's working there in the room will automatically see that information in the display as well. So we've managed a lot of that back and forth through our integration efforts. I think that we have sort of tackled this in a way that we've done deeper integration than I think even most of Xyte's other customers have done.
No, you guys have. You're really leveraging some of the most amazing tools that we have to offer, and of course, in doing so, putting that at the fingertips of your own customers. So Jody, we got a couple questions from John here. Thanks, John, for putting these in here. One of the first ones is as it relates to cloud and cloud adoption. And I'll take a quick little statement from the Xyte standpoint from a higher level, and then Jody, would love you to talk a little bit about this cloud versus on-prem kind of approach and where you saw the benefits leaning. From our standpoint at Xyte, with being this cloud-first approach, is for a couple reasons. But most importantly is that no matter what, whenever you're talking about cloud, you must consider security. And we take security with the utmost importance within Xyte. We've gone through the most rigor of security and cloud certifications, everything as it relates from GDPR to local CCPA down to California, all the way up to SOC 2 to a Data Protection Alliance. I mean, you name it, and we have absolutely complied to that type of stringent security requirements as it relates to the cloud. In terms of adoption, we definitely have seen the shift from even channel partners and end customers supporting the cloud. And I think a lot of that is we can thank Zoom and Teams for kind of making or opening our eyes to the fact that everything can happen in the cloud instantaneously and securely if done properly. But Jody, I'd love for you to comment a little bit on that, especially since Fuse is a cloud-based platform.
Sure. So when we started looking at this, and as I mentioned earlier, this isn't the first time that I've built or have worked on a project around a cloud-based architecture. And when we started looking at this, I did take the time to validate some of that market feedback to say, how important is it really for a on-prem type solution versus assuming that Avocor's customer base would adopt something that is cloud connected? And it validated some of the earlier findings that I've had with other projects that said, you know what, it's really not an issue. The segment of customers who truly care about no cloud connectivity for their devices is few and far between. And so I did not see it as a big blocker for addressing the needs that Avocor's customers have expressed to us by using a cloud architecture to accomplish that. And for those customers who were sensitive to it, I think that what we've done is we've implemented this in such a way that the value that they get outweighs the risk and the concerns that of deploying devices connected to cloud. And because of Avocor's partnerships with the likes of Logitech and Poly and Lenovo and Zoom and Microsoft, all of those platforms are already cloud connected anyway. And so we're fitting into an ecosystem that is already being managed from cloud anyway. And so it really negated some of those concerns for a vast majority of Avocor's customers.
Yeah, you bring up a great point about this just general adoption of cloud being so prevalent. And I was even reading a study recently about this, the basics of security as it comes to cloud. And speaking with a large enterprise customer, they were telling me a story about their own internal audit of being able to either hack AWS or simply walk into a server room, which seems a little bit easier for the common criminal. And this article just went into the details about just truly how secure the cloud is when done properly, when stayed up to date, and of course, when built off of a platform for someone that is so focused on security and as it relates to cloud. Jody, we got time for one last question. And this is a really interesting one. And, Avocor may or may not have an answer to this just yet, but I find it really interesting to just kind of finish this whole conversation around. And it's about leveraging a platform into this as a service, right? Setting the foundation in the cloud, setting the foundation from device data, monitoring, management, support, and kind of making this shift into as a service. And the question was, how does this approach support the circular economy? And what I believe what the person who asked the question was kind of getting at is potentially around even the sustainability and efficiency standards that are becoming just so popular, not just from a state level, but federal level. And even we're seeing this across the EU as well from a larger contingency level. But I can, a quick answer from the platform standpoint, as a service in general, the topic, the concept of delivering as a service includes the monthly subscription style way of transacting with equipment. Now, when you can transact in this monthly subscription model, what happens is that you have the ability to refresh devices. And when refreshing devices, you're able to bring devices back, refurb them, and potentially resell them, reuse them, recycle them in a much cleaner, more efficient manner. Now, that's, of course, our take on it from a high level, and our platform, right? That's another application to add on top of it, right? Just the same way that Avocor added on monitoring application to the platform, the support application to the platform to deliver Fuse. Jody, where do you kind of see this as a service application and even potentially this future circular economy support application as part of this platform?
Yeah, so a few thoughts around that. One being that I believe fundamentally that deploying devices on a subscription basis, especially when you have such deep capabilities in terms of understanding how the device is being used, where it's being used, allows you to make intelligent decisions around saying, oh, I'm seeing utilization go down here. Why is that? and then look at redeploying that device, even within the same company, into a different use case. So naturally, the device's longevity is going to be extended, and you're not making decisions around device disposal prematurely just because it's 3 years old. And so that certainly allows you to have better insights as an IT manager for how your devices are being used, where they're being used. If you see utilization go down, you can redeploy. Secondarily, I completely agree with you. In an as-a-service model, it does provide the ability for devices to be refreshed on a refresh schedule that the customer deems appropriate. If they say, hey, our displays, realistically, we're seeing that they're going to last us 5 years, at that point, they can then go into a refresh cycle where devices can then be refreshed, brought back off of that subscription, replaced on that same subscription, and then refurbished and resold rather than just simply being disposed of in a void. So I completely agree with you from the standpoint of sustainability. It's a huge, huge advantage to leverage this type of model in the deployment of not just Avocor devices, any kind of device.
And how great is it that you don't have to start from scratch and build that on your own? It's just add that application on top of your platform right next to your support and monitoring tools, right? So thank you everyone again for these amazing comments and Jody for this incredible insight into Fuse. I love what you guys have done so far with the applications that you have leveraged and the tools that you have used as part of the platform today to build and launch Fuse, to support your customers, and honestly, to grow this industry and to grow the market together. If anybody would like to learn more about Avocor, where should they head?
Just to avocor.com.
Awesome.
And then as it states in the slide here, getting started with Fuse, it's as simple as going to fuse.avocor.com, creating an account for your displays, and away you go.
Amazing. Thank you, Jody. You've been a fantastic insight into this whole thing. You know, it's always great to have good partners, good customers talking about their successes with leveraging a platform. So thank you for joining us, as well as for anyone on there that wants to learn more about Xyte and our platform that has enabled Jody and the Avocor team to do all of these things. And as you probably have heard, potentially so much more with how they are building and expanding and evolving Fuse. You guys can head to www.xyte.io. As well, for any manufacturers or channel partners that would like to get started for free in a quick little trial, you can also always go to start.xyte.io as well. Well, thank you everyone for joining this very informative webinar. As Emily mentioned, it has been recorded and will be shared with everyone on here. We hope we provided very valuable insights, not just from the evolution and transformation into the cloud, but a future look into where as a service and the circular economy may be bringing us. And of course, what amazing things Avocor has done using those tools to do exactly that. We thank you again, and we really look forward to working with many of you in the future. Have a great day.